The ending of The Truthers reveals that the film isn't a mystery about whether a secret child trafficking conspiracy exists. Instead, it's a psychological tragedy about how conspiracy thinking consumes ordinary people, destroys families, and continues spreading even after it's been disproven. While the movie encourages us to question Martin's involvement in Lucia's death, it gradually turns those suspicions back on Ruth, showing how easily people can build elaborate narratives from incomplete evidence. The biggest question throughout the movie is whether Ruth's father murdered his wife. At first, the evidence appears suspicious. Lucia tried calling Ruth before she died, leaving a terrified voicemail saying Martin changed and that he frightened her. Ruth also notices several inconsistencies surrounding the supposed accident. Lucia always hated locked doors, yet the bathroom was locked. Martin erased every piece of data from Lucia's phone before anyone else could examine it. He constantly isolates himself in the attic, installs surveillance cameras throughout the house, and fills his life with extreme conspiracy theories. From Ruth's perspective, every new discovery seems to support one conclusion. Her father killed her mother to hide whatever secret he was protecting. However, the film dismantles that theory. The police surveillance footage shows Lucia entering the bathroom alone. Earlier recordings also reveal that her alcoholism became far worse than Ruth realized, something Martin tried to shield his daughter from seeing. Even Ruth herself begins experiencing severe dizziness after drinking Martin's herbal tea, but we later realize there is a far more reasonable explanation. She already took prescription pain medication for her injured ankle. Her paranoia causes her to ignore that possibility and instead believe she's been poisoned exactly like her mother. By the end of the story, nothing confirms Martin murdered Lucia. Instead, the film suggests her death truly was a tragic accident caused by alcohol. That doesn't make Martin innocent in every sense. His obsession with conspiracies terrified Lucia during her final months. She believed something terrible might eventually happen because of his irrational behavior. But the tragedy is that her fears were about the man Martin was becoming, not about a murder plot he already committed. Throughout the movie, the attic becomes almost mythical. Martin spends all his time there. He locks the room, refuses to discuss what he's doing, and behaves as though he's protecting an enormous secret. Ruth concludes that whatever is hidden upstairs must explain everything. The truth is that the attic is simply where Martin has immersed himself in conspiracy culture. It contains research, podcasts, documents about pharmaceutical companies, missing children, surveillance equipment, weapons, and evidence of his growing paranoia. There isn't a hidden victim or proof of global conspiracy. The attic represents Martin's complete isolation from reality. It's less a physical mystery than a symbol of how deeply he's trapped himself inside an alternate worldview. One of the smartest aspects of the film is that it slowly turns Ruth into a mirror image of her father. Initially, Ruth dismisses every conspiracy theory Martin mentions. She believes facts and evidence will easily expose his delusions. But after hearing Lucia's frightened voicemail, Ruth begins connecting unrelated details exactly the way Martin does. She interprets erased phone data as evidence of murder. She suspects the coroner is involved because he attended the funeral. She believes Aaron may secretly be working against her. She convinces herself Martin poisoned both her and Lucia. Eventually, she even begins distrusting the only people trying to help her. The movie presents the clues from her perspective, so we begin asking the same questions she does and making the same assumptions. By doing this, The Truthers demonstrates how conspiracy thinking develops. It rarely begins with ridiculous ideas. It often starts with legitimate questions, grief, fear, or unanswered mysteries before gradually expanding into a worldview where every coincidence becomes proof. The film invites us into that mindset before revealing how dangerous it can become. The missing boy serves as the emotional backbone of Martin's obsession. He becomes convinced Alejandro was kidnapped by Certix Pharmaceuticals and hidden beneath the company's headquarters inside forgotten Civil War tunnels. Everything Martin does is driven by the belief that rescuing Alejandro will expose a massive international conspiracy. Instead, Ruth eventually realizes the answer while remembering the injury she suffered earlier in the film. When she cut her foot while searching the supposedly contaminated lake, she believed she'd stepped on random debris. She later understands it wasn't debris at all. It was Alejandro's bicycle. That realization changes everything. Alejandro never disappeared into underground tunnels. He accidentally drowned in Lake Caldas, where his body remained trapped beneath submerged wreckage until authorities finally recovered it. The simplest explanation had been correct all along, and fortunately, Martin can no longer accept that possibility. Perhaps the film's most heartbreaking moment occurs when Ruth tells her father about Alejandro's bicycle. For the first time, Martin hesitates. He appears ready to reconsider everything, but then he says something revealing. Even if Alejandro drowned, countless other kidnapped children still need saving. That line exposes how conspiracy thinking has completely replaced reality for him. His beliefs are no longer based on Alejandro. They no longer depend on evidence. Whenever one claim is disproven, another simply replaces it. The conspiracy cannot be falsified because every contradiction becomes further evidence of an even larger cover-up. Ruth finally understands that arguing facts won't save her father. Instead, she tries something much more personal. She tells him he doesn't have to rescue the world. She doesn't need a hero. She simply wants her father back. It's the only moment that nearly breaks through his delusions. Unfortunately, the collapsing building ends that possibility forever. Martin and Berta die because they act on beliefs they never managed to question. Armed with guns, explosives, and Aaron's stolen security pass, they infiltrate Certix, believing they're moments away from freeing imprisoned children. Even after finding nothing beneath the building, they refuse to abandon their assumptions. Each empty room simply convinces them the real prisoners must be hidden behind the next wall. Their certainty destroys the building around them. Rather than dying as heroes exposing a conspiracy, they die pursuing something that never existed. Martin spends the entire movie believing powerful people are hiding the truth underground. In reality, the only thing hidden beneath the ground is Alejandro's body in the lake. The ending delivers the movie's most unsettling idea. 1 year later, every major mystery has been resolved. Authorities recover Alejandro's body exactly where Ruth predicted. Investigators conclude he drowned accidentally. Martin and Berta died trying to attack an innocent pharmaceutical company. Objectively, the conspiracy has been disproven, yet none of that matters. A stranger approaches Ruth and confidently insists Martin is still alive. He claims Alejandro was secretly experimented on before his body was planted in the lake. According to him, every official investigation is part of the cover-up. The film ends with crowds carrying signs demanding the truth. This final sequence demonstrates the central paradox of conspiracy movements. Evidence rarely ends them. Instead, contradictory evidence is often absorbed into the conspiracy itself. Martin's death doesn't weaken the movement. It transforms him into a martyr. His followers reinterpret every fact to preserve the belief system they already accepted. The conspiracy becomes self-sustaining. The ending of The Truthers argues that conspiracy theories are less about discovering hidden truths than about creating narratives that explain fear, grief, uncertainty, and randomness. Martin isn't portrayed as evil. He's portrayed as a grieving, isolated man, desperate to find meaning in a world where terrible things sometimes happen without clear reasons. Alejandro's disappearance, Lucia's alcoholism, retirement, loneliness, and the loss of purpose all become woven together into a single grand explanation that convinces him he alone understands reality. Ruth spends most of the movie trying to prove her father is a murderer, only to realize she began thinking exactly as he does, connecting isolated clues into a story that feels convincing because it satisfies emotional needs rather than factual ones. By the conclusion, the real villain isn't Certix or a hidden organization, it's the seductive certainty offered by misinformation. Once someone accepts a worldview where every contradiction is evidence of an even bigger conspiracy, reality becomes almost impossible to restore. That final image of new believers marching through the streets long after every claim has been disproven leaves us with the film's bleakest message. The truth alone isn't always enough to defeat a lie that people desperately want to believe.